Good to go.
Right. Good to go. Welcome everybody to Sunday's session of Winning AO. And clearly the last of the first week before we pivot into the second week. As ever, my great pleasure to introduce Andrew Hill, sheltering from the 39 degrees heat on the court in his car. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Mark. Welcome to all our viewers from Sydney. And it is 39 degrees. I've got the air conditioner on. I can control the elements. I feel sorry for the players out on court who are challenging the elements at the moment.
Yeah, it's a toughie. And then come back the next day or the day after if you've managed to win, which probably gets us into the talent to win or lose easily and conserve your energy. What's gone on yesterday?
All right. This is the start of the second week. You want to try and survive the first week, and now they're getting down to business, and you can see that all the top seeds are playing each other. So we're talking about the top 20 players. Djokovic just won 6-0, 6-0, 6-3, just wants to get off that court and recover, ready for the next match. Sinner just won in 3. Alex de Minaur is just about to take on Rublev. He's got the whole Australian crowd behind him. You need these things at this time. It's going to be tough tennis.
Who did Novak beat? Bagel 3.
I've just forgotten his name. I haven't got my sheet in front of me because I'm in the car. Yeah,
we've
got to talk about Cameron Norrie. Cameron Norrie got up.
Just before we get on to Cameron, so Djokovic wasn't Bagel 3 better than the guy he beat?
No, these guys are in the top 20. They're all playing, but he was clinical. Has he peaked before the final? We won't know. But that was a very clinical match on a hot day. Get on, get off, and recover.
So I'm presuming, that tennis is not a game of winners necessarily. Tennis is a game of errors, and Djokovic just doesn't make unforced or even forced errors. So if you're playing him, when you win a point, you have chipped a point out of granite. You've earned it.
Yeah, look, he's very clinical. He's making good choices and good execution of shots. Sometimes he's leaving the court open. There's even talk, sometimes he says he's not feeling well, and your opponent gets this fake sense of, oh, gee, I've got him. And then next thing, you're shaking hands at the net because he's tricked you. So mental game, very much.
And this is the topic of today, really, and increasingly next week as tennis becomes more and more a mental and identity game. So just to introduce those topics and next week, firstly, our favourite Djokovic. So he's obviously found a way to get to 30 all and know he's going to win and concentrates on winning 2 points on the bounce.
Point.
So that's great. Thank you very much. It's a tight game, but I'll just take it narrowly if you don't mind. And he did that 12 games on the bounce. Can you imagine that? He's not playing a mug. He's not playing a mug. It's top 16. Jeez. Cameron Norrie, interesting. So talk us through, as an elite level 4 master coach, the challenge of being loose and playing with freedom when the brain is trying to protect you and go into conscious, stiff controlling mode. Because that's what Cameron did. He managed to win and get himself playing freely and more aggressively.
And you'll see them jumping up and down and just relaxing and just trying to get their body ready in between points. So there's a thing called the in-between point routine. You'll see one of the masters of that was Nadal, with his touching his shirt, getting ready, same routine, drinking the water, and all these things go together, the ritual. And the ritual becomes a routine. And then your body is ready. Then you'll see them look at the strings and they're preparing what decisions they want. They're not looking around the crowd and waving. That happens 1 second after they hit. They look to their box. They get some appreciation. or frustration out, 1 second, and then they're focusing on what they have to do next in the present, focusing in the present. Yep.
So what you've just said belies a whole gamut of training, which we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but the ability to be in the present moment, to only look at the back of the ball, to be only concentrating on the whoosh and forgetting your opponent and the crowd and the scoreboard, it's not a simple art.
No, they're trained under pressure. They got here early in the tournaments and they were preparing. This heat is new today, so this will start to wipe out a few people. I noticed Alvarez, his player pulled out, didn't finish again. So, there's the heat is a big change. And if this second week turns hotter, that it goes more Alex's way, home court advantage.
Yeah. So the little phrase of we go from pretenders to contenders. I love my little headlines. Yeah,
I like that one too.
What's happening in the women's, and the doubles?
Yeah. Iga got knocked out, and the girl who knocked her out, she was solid under pressure. She was getting first serves in, and this is a big thing. Players will stress. It doesn't matter how good you are. You only stress on the second serve. You want to get a first serve in so you don't go in and do a second serve. And she's a young girl, and she did really well. Sabalenka, very strong on court, just physically and mentally strong. And Coco Gauff in there, but it's now you're going 16, and then we'll have 8. It'll be then down to the semis.
Wow. And each time is a jump up a few $100,000 in prize money. So, I know they've got money, but nevertheless, ranking points, prize money, pride, status is all on the line. Quarterfinals, semi to finals, winner, runner up.
And you'll love this. As we're talking, I'm getting text messages on my phone from Alex and Rublev playing. So one of my team is in the stadium watching it live. So it'll be exciting. So I'll have more updates for you as we go.
Great. You got your interview with Stewart coming up soon. Introduce everybody to Stewart.
All right, Stewart is a high performance coach, and he's written a lot of documents on the mental game and how, as a parent, if you've got children, you'll love this, because he talks about how we can have non-verbal communication and verbal communication. It should equal. And probably his key thing is we're saying it's okay to go out there, but the parents are only clapping winners. So we have to prepare them for good and bad. And this comes down to your parents and your team. Your team is very important.
Rudyard Kipling and the hero poem comes to mind, written on the wood as you enter the ivy-clad gates of Wimbledon. That winning or losing is imposters.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit, if we could, about the mental game and pressure. And I just want to be contentious to start, and then the elite level 4 master coach can pull it apart or say what he wants to say. So first of all, we keep putting pressure into mythology. That pressure is bad for you. That pressure is your enemy. We even talk about under pressure. No one talks about with pressure. So it's my contention that the more that we vilify pressure and put it wrongly as your enemy, the more that we need to be mentally tough and fight it, and hence never get into flow and not be loose and free when you need to be. If we realize that pressure gives you everything you need with this chemical of cocktails to be at your best. And all you need to do is learn how to strip out the noise in your brain for it to be peaceful and quiet, and allow your body and your instincts to take over. Now you don't have to be mentally tough. You can be mentally smart. And you have an ice cool brain and not just a loose, relaxed body, but the ability for you to get out of your own way and hand over to your instincts that perform much better than you. What do you say about that, level 4 coach?
All right, just two lovely thoughts for you. A piece of coal that's put under pressure turns into a diamond. That's one thought. All right, so pressure can be good, and it's how you perceive. Second thing is an Aussie, an Australian one. The Great Barrier Reef is the biggest living organism in the world, and the coral on the inner reef is okay, but the outer reef, which is constantly bombarded and challenged, is the most beautiful coral in the world. So challenge is good. Yeah,
challenge is great. And I've learned that from yesterday. Competition, terrible word. Challenge, lovely word.
I use the word challenge, and are you up for the challenge, and what can you learn from the challenge? You can, if you do a sprint in 20 seconds and then you perform 19, you have beaten your personal best, and until you get to a point where you're going for the world record.
Talk to me, before we hand over to Stewart and yourself, about the coral. I'm sure it's hard. Is it stiff or is it loose and flowy?
Now, the coral is definitely hard, like a skeleton, but on the coral are all these plants that connect, and beautiful colours. You've got all the fish, and they all sway with all those ocean currents, and it's alive. The whole time it's alive, and it goes right up the eastern coast of Australia, and it's the longest living organism in the world, and you can see it from space. The distance is just massive. So it's a live organism with soft seaweed and ferns, underwater ferns. It's beautiful.
Great. So can we take from this conversation, and Ramon Oza will take it on Monday, we'll get to Ramon soon, that pressure is just what you put meaning to, and it can be bad. It can be under pressure. Fight it, mentally tough. And if you don't know what it is and it only hits you at your moment of need, probably you're going to lose and reinforce the myth about pressure. But pressure can be great. It produces diamonds.
It can. Yep.
It's on the outside of the coral reef. So provided you can train to be loose and free and allow living organisms like instincts to take over, you will thrive with pressure rather than survive under pressure.
You look at the tennis, if the wind starts to build up, you can hate the wind, but there's this lovely phrase which is learn to love the wind. Because and it's just a mindset to say it's okay. Yeah. So you can see a bad thing, you can see a good thing, may as well make the best of that situation.
Fabulous, Andrew. So tomorrow we have our co-founder, co-partner, Ramon Oza. Just extraordinary knowledge about the brain and meditation. So he will be talking about two things, about belief, and argue how you train belief so that if you are equal, which more and more these matches are going to be equal, he will argue that those who have more belief than the others are likely to win, which probably gets us onto Sinner now. Talk a little bit about Sinner.
Well, Sinner I've been following very closely. He's been coached by Darren Cahill. Got a lot of respect for Darren, Australian coach, and also coach Leighton Hewitt. His strategy, I can see a very similar strategy on court right at the moment, and it's a winning strategy. It's very hard to beat, and you just have to wait and force an extra shot, but you're just waiting until you see a chance to finish. And there's specific things that you're looking for that.
Great. So the second thing that Ramona's talking about is basically Novak's quote is that the inner battle is the biggest battle of all.
Yes.
And you are a more potent competitor than your competitor. You've got to beat yourself first. So he'll be talking about that. A fascinating interview on Monday. Don't miss it. Oh, and we've got new timings for next week.
Yes. We're ready.
What are the new timings?
Well, I think we're an hour later on the time that we're on right now, and I'm sure we will send out a social media update and we'll catch up with our viewers an hour later.
So instead of being timed 7 o'clock your time, 8 o'clock
It'll be 8 o'clock
time, we will be going out at 5 o'clock Eastern European time. What's that? 2 o'clock Pacific time, and then probably earlier in your morning rather than later in your evening.
That's right, and it's mainly because we're broadcasting from Florida. You're heading to Florida with Ramon, and so we're just doing an hour change.
Yeah, and we're doing a few of our winning camps, which is perfect for what we're talking about today. So introduce Stewart, if you would, and then without further ado, we'll watch your interview with Stewart.
All right, well, Stewart is an excellent high-performance coach. He's on the court. He's working with top players in tournaments. He has a great club called the Marconi Club, which is just a great business environment as well. And he's talking about some of his key topics on some of his new text. So with no further introduction there, Stewart is amazing, and I think he'll be controversial with you, but he's going to also help parents how to help children get into the right mindset.
Great, and then
so I look forward to this.
Back on the courts and the 39-degree battle for you, Andrew.
I'm heading back. I'm nice and fresh now, but I'll be hitting in a few minutes. Yes.
Good stuff. Lovely speaking to you, and Ramon will be with you tomorrow.
I look forward to it. See you then from Sydney.
And UK, London.
Yeah, and UK.
Right, hello viewers. Back here at the Winning Summit, we're doing the AO series, and we've got an Aussie coach, Stewart Whicker. He's a master club pro coach from Marconi Tennis and the author of Peak Performance. And if you want to find out more about what Stewart does, prolevel.coach, a website with all your questions answered. And today we're just going to talk about parents and kids and interaction. So over to you, Stewart. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Andrew. So one of the biggest things that we see is that the language and the disconnect between the words that parents speak to their kids and then the body language that they then show when the kids are out performing. And one of the worst things that a parent or a coach can say to their child or athlete is, I don't care whether you win or lose, just try your best. That is so traumatic because there's the words of I don't care and then the body language that absolutely contradicts. And for example, if the kid hits a child hits a winner and the parents clapping, and then the child misses an easy volley into the net, and the parents' body language represents that disappointment of like, so there's a massive contradiction to I don't care. And it is so traumatic for those kids because the kids are, being told one thing and shown something totally different. And
it's like the non-verbals aren't equaling what they're saying.
100%. And it's so traumatic. You get parents that the kids say, don't watch me play. I don't want you to watch me play. And it's only because of that contradiction. And if the parents didn't have that contradiction, the relationship would be so much more positive and you'd get better results from the child. It takes a lot of the stress out of it. Parents don't realize the impact that they have on their kids, whether it's in tennis, soccer, or any sport or any endeavor. And your words should match your body language. And so I have a 16-year-old son, and when he goes out and plays competitively, I ask him, what's his goal, and he goes, I want to win. And I go, great, I want you to win too. And I never use the word but. I want you to win, but I would never say that. We want him. He wants to win. I want him to win. We're on the same page. In the absence of that happening because the opponent is too good, what are the takeaways? What are the positives that I can be observing while you're in that competitive environment? And that then comes back to the routines. What routines can you do in between the points? And I don't know if a lot of people realize. I think people realize that there is a lot of time in between points, but they don't realize the exact time. And our research, 16.7% of the time, players at all levels are competing from when they walk on the court to when they walk off. 16.7% of the time they're hitting a ball in competitive play. And let's call it 20%. So easy, rounded up to 20%. So 80% of the time they're not hitting a ball. They're not competitively competing to win points. And what happens in that 80% is, at all levels, is where the matches are won and lost. So if you can have work towards peak performance for your 20% in that 80%, using the team around you, including your parents or your coaches. We're going to talk about Deminar in a moment, and that's exactly how you get peak performance.
And it sounds as though you create positive teams to work with these players, and this is your own son, so you're getting first-hand experience. And
I learned a long time ago. I was very fortunate enough to train and coach a player from 10 years old that went on to become the number one 16-year-old in the country and a Grand Slam finalist in the juniors. And I learned back then that all athletes, all kids that have an inkling of wanting to be better, always give 100%. And so the other traumatic thing you can say, besides I don't care whether you win or lose, is just go out there and try your best. And that is the worst thing you can tell a kid, because in your mind, you know what the best is in your mind of what you're looking for as a parent or a coach. But in the mind of the child or the athlete, their best, they're always giving their best, but they might not feel well that day. Their blood sugar levels might be low. Their energies, they might have an upset tummy. But they're still giving 100%. But as a subjective comparison to the previous time you saw them perform at a high level, they'll come up and you go, well, you didn't try today. And it's the worst thing, because with the player that I worked with a long time ago, I would be on court and I'd go, give me 10 more balls in a drill, but do it even harder, be more aggressive. And they would get confused and like, well, I just tried my best. I don't know what your best is. So we went off and we bought a heart rate monitor, put a heart rate monitor on him, and he was able to see and internally reference what his best was. So he no longer had to rely on me telling him what I thought was his best.
He could sort of estimate and see his own performance. That's good.
Yeah, and he can compare himself to himself.
Yeah.
From himself, instead of having somebody like me comparing him to what I saw him previously. So because there's a massive subjective coaching is, we could talk all day about this, but subjective coaching versus objective coaching. Subjective, I do it, unfortunately I do it. I drag a basket out onto the court and I tell a student what I think. And subjective coaching is a lazy way of coaching. Objective, it's my reality, it's my truth. It's not the actual true reality. So objective coaching is when we look at the data and the statistics and stuff like that are that are true, that are absolutely representative of the reality. So peak performance is something that is absolutely attainable by everybody, as long as you've got the people around that athlete or child all on the same page, working towards the same goal.
Look, some great advice there. And we're on the eve of Alex de Minaur getting into the top 10. I know we've been watching him as an Aussie coaches. This is a big goal for him. He's now made it after those amazing matches. Any thoughts there?
You know, he's got a great team around him. And if you look at the crowd, that was part of his team. You know, he said after the post, you know, the match was, it's the best court in the world for him because of the environment that he's in. They are so, they elevate him, and a great team elevates. It doesn't pull down. And you know, I talk about trauma a lot, and as kids are developing and going through stages of their development, the amount of trauma that they go through, you understand why when they get to the 15, 16 and 17-year-olds that they pack it in, they give it up. But when you got someone like de Minaur and the team that he has around him that are all about just elevating him, and you know, Leighton Hewitt, I mentioned this to you before, that Leighton Hewitt in his heyday, he used to hire out seats in the crowd and for the Fanatics. And if everyone should know about the Fanatics.
Yeah, the Aussie Fanatics. Oi, oi, oi.
Yeah, 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 and they would all be there. He would hire the seats out and pay for them to be there to help elevate him. And because, like I said, in that 80%, you know, the matches are won and lost. And if you've got a great team around you, you know, you can achieve anything.
Look, thank you very much, Stewart. And we're getting ready to get into the Australian Open. So all the best for our Aussie players. And thanks for chatting, and thanks for great advice. Hopefully parents and students keeping him in the game. So we might come back to you and also get some points on after the Australian Open.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks again. Keep well.